morning, guys. My name is Miss Dupree. Welcome to day 4 of our formative task about the giant Pacific octopus. We have been learning all about this particular creature to help us with our narrative writing this week. The writing we're going to be working on is about a giant Pacific octopus that is hiding in its den because there are enemies nearby. It sees an unopened jar of clams that fell into the ocean with its lid still on it. How will the octopus get to the jar? How will it open the jar? So the facts that we've been writing down are going to help us answer those questions within our story. Because even though this is a fictitious story, we want to use real characteristics of the animal in our story to make our character seem more lifelike, more real. All right, so let's learn a little bit. We've learned about their body parts, their dens and hiding places and different things like that. Today we're going to be talking about how big and smart they are, right? It says because giant Pacific octopuses hide a lot, it is hard for scientists to study them. At aquariums, however, scientists can watch them up close. They have seen the animals learn new tasks and solve puzzles. These sea creatures are not just big and shy, they are also smart and curious. Says some giant Pacific octopuses have learned to twist the lids off jars in order to get food that has been placed inside. That seems like a fact that we would want to be able to write down. So I want you to go ahead and pause the video and I want you to take a minute to go ahead and write a fact down about the giant Pacific octopus and how smart it is, okay? If I was to write a fact, I would probably write what was in that caption because we know that one part of that narrative writing is that he has to get the lid off the jar. So go ahead and pause the video now and take down your notes. All right, how is my writing graded? So you're going to use this paper to the right to help you with your writing. So it's going to kind of guide you through. It's kind of like a checklist. So you're going to go through and you want to be able to circle yes to everything. If there's something that you have to circle no to, then that means that you need to go back into your writing and fix something, okay? So the first one, I named and described my octopus character in the setting of my story. Number 2, I explained how my octopus character gets and eats the clams. Number 3, I described what my octopus character does about the enemies. Number 4, I ended my story with a description of how my character feels about the events in the story. Number 5, I used time words like first, next, before, after, then, and soon to help my reader understand when events happened in my story. Number 6, I read my story to a partner. Number 7, I asked my partner for a suggestion. Number 8, I thanked my partner for the suggestion. And number 9, I used my partner's suggestion. So your partner in this is going to be your home learning coach. It might be mom, dad, or one of your grandparents, or even a big brother and sister. So you want to be able to circle yes to all of these things, okay? I'm going to read you my example in just a second, and then I'm going to go back through and I'm going to make sure that I could circle yes to these things, all right? So this was our writing prompt. We need to make sure that my writing includes information on how it's going to hide from the enemies, how it will get to the jar, and how it will open the jar. So I'm going to go ahead and read my example to you guys. It says, one day, Otto the octopus was just hanging out in his den deep in the Pacific Ocean. Otto was hanging out in his den because there were some whales swimming nearby. Whales are one of Otto's enemies, so he was trying to stay out of sight while they were near. While Otto was waiting, his stomach started growling. Otto was getting very hungry. Otto peeked out of his den and saw that a tasty jar of clams was nearby. He really wanted to eat those clams. He could almost taste them. Otto needed to be very sneaky in order to get to the clams. First, he used his camouflage abilities to blend in with some reef while he then used his siphon to quickly get to the jar of clams. Then he used his many suckers to pick up the jar. After picking up the jar, he used his siphon to once again get back into his den quickly. Once Otto was safely in his den, he decided to eat the clams. He used his powerful suckers to grip the lid of the jar and twist it open. After that, he reached in and started eating the clams. Finally, Otto's stomach stopped growling, and he could settle into a nice nap in his den while he waited for his enemies to leave. Once Otto woke up, he peeked out of his den and saw that the whales were no longer near his home. He was relieved so he could once again go out to hunt for food without worrying. So let's go back and look at that. Number one, I named and described my octopus character in the setting of the story. So we have Otto the octopus. I did name him. I told him what he was. The setting was deep in the Pacific Ocean and he was in his den. So I could circle yes to that one. Number two, I explained how my octopus character gets and eats the clams. So I talked about how he used his powerful suckers to open up the jar, right? I could, if I wanted to add a little more information, maybe I could add something about how he uses his beak to open up the clams, right? So you could even add more information that you've learned on that. Maybe that's something that I'll go back and add into my story for tomorrow. Number three, I described what my octopus character does about the enemies. I talked about how he camouflaged himself and he used his siphon to move quickly. So I could circle yes to that. Number five, I used time words like first, next, before, after, then, and soon to help my reader understand when events happen in my story. I could also circle yes to that. So I want you guys to be thinking about all these things because you are going to start on your writing today, okay? And you're going to try your very best. I want you to work really hard. And then after you're done, you're going to give it to your partner and have them go through and see if they could circle yes to all these things. I feel like all of us probably have something we could add. I'm going to add something to my writing to share with you guys for tomorrow. Let's review the facts that we've learned so far about the giant Pacific octopus. So let's talk about size first. World's largest octopus, 8 arms. Arms grow up to 16 feet long. Smallest is a wolfie, size of a penny. Lives in the Pacific Ocean. Lives in shallow water. Lives in water up to 5,000 feet deep. Let's talk about some body parts. Arms are attached to the head. Mantle is a body part above the head. Mantle is shaped like a sack, and it contains the stomach and other body parts. Dens and hiding places. It doesn't have bones, so it allows the octopus to squeeze in small holes or cracks. Lives in a den. Beak is a hard part in the mouth. Food. Hard shell foods like clams and crabs. Poisons the victim to help the victim or to stop the victim from moving. Pile of shells is a midden outside of the den, so we know what he does with the shells when he's done. Hiding from the enemies. They can change colors to hide from the enemies, so they camouflage. They can make their skin smooth or bumpy. Evading the enemies. They can squirt a cloud of ink out of their bodies, and they use their siphon to help them move quickly. And then the last part that we've learned about is that they're smart. They can twist off lids to get food out. So now I want you guys to go ahead and think about all the things you've learned. If you need to pause the video and maybe take down some of these facts that I have up here, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, go ahead and start working on your writing and we will finish it up tomorrow. Bye, guys.